This is a recap of my nuzlocke of Pokemon Emerald. I will assume that most viewers already know what is a nuzlocke, but anyway, I'll put the rules of the hardcore nuzlocke that I'm following on the screen for you. This run is slightly different from the usual nuzlocke for two reasons. Most streamers nowadays play with candies because they make streams more interesting. One of my objectives was to experience Emerald, as in really replaying the game. So I decided not to use any candies because I wanted to feel how much you had to farm, what your level was when you got to certain challenges, and this kind of influences the difficulty of the nuzlocke because you have less experience, you can't train every Pokemon you catch, and this inherently means that you have to choose a team and pretty much keep using the team most of the time. This does make the run quite a bit harder. At the same time, every single loss of a trained Pokemon, you can really feel that, because that means that you will have to spend actual time to farm experience on a new Pokemon. The other unique element of my run is that because I want to try everything that Emerald has to offer, I also want to see the teams of every single trainer in the game. This means that I'm not skipping trainers, but I'm doing everything I can. I'm beating everyone I see. I'm going out of my way to search for hidden trainers and everything. And because of this, I'm having way more battles than you usually have in a nuzlocke. This does increase the difficulty because the more fights you have, the more you can end up in an unlucky situation where, I don't know, you get crit multiple times in a row and you lose a Pokemon. Apart from the slight increase in difficulty, wanting to try everything also means that I had to choose how to treat extra elements like the battle tent. The battle tent it is designed in such a way that it is not really possible to go through the battle tent without losing Pokemon. I just decided that for these kind of elements of the gameplay, like the battle tent contests, because Pokemon don't get KO'd in the contests, but technically you are losing. These kind of elements are outside of the scope of the Nuzlocke. I will do them, but if I lose a Pokemon in this kind of content, it doesn't count as dead. It's just impossible. Like, imagine me trying the Battle Frontier at the end of the game and I have to not lose even a single Pokemon. That just doesn't make any sense. Last element to note, I am terrible at giving nicknames to Pokemon, and that's why I just won't give any nickname. With all of this said, let's start the run. I chose Mudkip as my starter, both because I love Marshtomp and because Marshtomp and Swampert are simply insane in this game. Then we go on to beat the rival, and I have to say that in this game, the rival is a complete joke. I don't think I will even talk about the later battles against her because they are just really easy and they're like battles against a random trainer. After this, Wrample joins the team, followed by Tailo, and then Wrample becomes a Beautifly. At this point, I get to Rastar's Tunnel, and I notice that I messed up. The only Pokemon that you can catch in Rastar's Tunnel is Whismur, but I already got one earlier, and so I just lost an encounter. I should have used a Repel. Before beating the first gym, I have to farm a little bit, and Tailo at level 13 learns Wing Attack. That's really early for such a powerful move, and I seriously wish PG could take a page from Tailo's book. You may have noticed that two of the three Pokemon I'm training are actually rock weak. Beautifly actually takes quadruple damage from rock type attacks, but I'm confident that Mudkip will be enough. I go to the gym, and I should say that I don't really even check the movesets for all the gym leaders. I will tell case by case whether I checked the movesets or not, but in this case, I didn't really check anything. I remember that the only good Pokemon she has is an Ospas, and the move of the gym is Rock Tomb, which I don't really fear. I go in, and Mudkip just solos everything. Really nice. At this point, Mudkip evolves, and I finally have my Marshtomp. And I get the badge so that I can now use cut. At this point, I ran into a very unusual problem, or at least this never happened to me. I don't think it's necessary to tell you every single Pokemon I catch. I will only talk about the relevant ones. But in this case, the list of Pokemon I got until now actually matters. Apart from the three that I already talked about, the Pokemon I got are Puchena, Wingull, Meryl, and Whismur. Do you notice the problem now? Yeah, none of my Pokemon can learn Cut. This doesn't block me because Cut isn't necessary to get to Dewford, but I do wonder if it was a game like Silver where the HM is actually necessary to progress in the story. What happens if you don't get any encounter that can actually learn the HM? Do you have to reset? Or can you just catch a Pokemon for a second, use the HM, and then just free a Pokemon? Or maybe you can just keep an HM slave if you need one? I really have no idea. Actually, if someone knows, please let me know. I hope this is the last time I run into this problem, but maybe it's more common than I think. Anyway, the level cap for the next gym is 19. It is 4 levels above the one for the first gym, and there aren't actually many trainers between the two gyms, and there are even less because I don't have cut to reach some of them. I decided to go to Slayport to fight a few more trainers, but it turns out I can't until I get the letter to Steven. The problem is the cave is dark and you need flash to bring the letter. But to use flash in the overworld, you need the second gym badge, which I don't have the experience to get. What am I supposed to do? I mean, I'm supposed to farm wild Pokemon, but it's too boring. I don't want to. So I just get the map from Bulbapedia and navigate the cave in the dark, which kinds of work. And then I go to Slayport, do stuff, and then come back. At this point, I'm ready for the gym. The strategy is pretty simple. I think Tailo can beat both the matchup and the Meditate. At that point, we get to the Makuita. I checked the moveset for the Makuita and not the other ones, and Makuita only has fighting type moves. This means that it can't really damage Beautifly. The plan is to hit Makuita once with Tailo on what I think will probably be a Bulk Up. Then I will switch and the Beautifly can finish the rest. The first attack from Tailo will probably do a lot of damage to Makuita, and then I just finish with Beautifly. This doesn't go as planned. After beating the matchup, the Meditate comes out, and I'm tempted to use a focused energy because I remember that Meditate only has Confusion as an attacking move at low levels, so it's kind of free, and a critical hit on Makuita could directly end the battle. I do it, and this happens.
Wait, what? There's Focus Punch.
I seriously have no idea why that Meditate had a Focus Punch. It was a completely random move. It's not part of its level up moveset. It was a TM. It's pretty unusual for a gym in the vanilla games to have Pokemon that have learned multiple TMs, and this TM is not the gym TM. The gym TM is Bulk Up, which Meditite also has. This completely derails my plans. I send out Beautifly, and then it's just a 1v1 Beautifly versus Makuita. This should still be doable, but I mess up. I should have started with a Gust, and instead I go for Stanspore, and it misses. And then I go for Stanspore again. This time it hits, but at this point Makuita already has two Bull Caps. This is actually too much, and Gust from Beautifly just doesn't do enough damage at this point. The battle becomes pretty long, and Broly actually has both Super Potion left. He uses both, and in the end, even if Butterfly takes 1/4 of the damage from fighting type attacks. She goes down. I'm left with only Marstomp, but Marstomp manages to pull through. I lost two Pokemon. They were the first losses of this run, and I'm feeling pretty frustrated because that Focus Punch really came out of nowhere. At that point, I catch a Tentacle, which can learn Cut, and finally I can beat the trainers above Rasboro. I do this with Gulpin and Whismur, the two new Pokemon that I started to train to occupy the spots that were left empty in my team. Then I went back to Slateport and I beat the Battle Tent. This one was the one where you had to rent some Pokemon and you could take one Pokemon from every trainer you beat. Then I went to the Trickmaster house. In case you don't remember, the Trickmaster is a guy that gives you a challenge every time you get a badge starting from the second gym badge. Usually, each challenge involves a puzzle that also uses the latest HM that you can use thanks to the last badge you got. In the case of the first challenge, I can't really say it was a puzzle, honestly. It was just a straight road where you had to cut down trees. Kind of boring. Still, free trainers. There were so many trainers in this section that I didn't even need to farm before going to the next gym. I mean, I farmed a little at the start to level up Whismur and Gulpin a few levels because they were new Pokemon, but then I went straight to the gym in Mobile. Also thanks to the fact that, as everyone knows, Marshtomp just stomps on this gym and it was just an easy solo. After the gym, I decided to visit the Verdanturf battle tent, and I have to say that I absolutely hate that thing. You know, it's that game mode where the Pokemon act on their own and you can only choose to switch them, and the way in which they select their moves is a mess. You can actually watch a video on YouTube somewhere where some guy investigated that. It was really complicated, not intuitive at all, not explained anywhere in the game. It's horrible. I decided to try it once. I noticed that the Pokemon of my opponents were level 30, so I just lost, and then I decided that I would do it later. So I moved on. Next was the fourth gym, and the level cap is level 29. You may notice that there is only 5 levels above the third gym, and there is a ton of stuff to do before that. You have to go up, go around the desert, go to the waterfalls where you meet Team Magma stealing the meteorite. Then you have to follow Team Magma on Mount whatever that volcano is called. And then you have to battle Team Magma. Then you go down. And then finally you go to the gym. That's a ton of stuff to do. There are many trainers. And honestly, with three Pokemon, there was too much experience and they would end up over leveling. So I added two new members to my team, Solrock and Swablu. Swablu is pretty weak at the start, but I was thinking long term. And then while training Swablu, I had a deja vu from my silver days, you know, the Rocket Hideout. This.
I prob- No!
I thought Coughing learned self-destruct at a higher level, and I admit I let my guard down, but honestly, it learns it exactly at level 17. It was the first Pokemon with self-destruct that I met in this run, and it just exploded in my face, as usual. Instead, Solrock is resistant to fire, which is good for the gym, and it just so happens to be a perfect counter for Camerupt, because you know it's immune to the ground stab, and then it resists the fire stab. I took it for Maxi, and it worked really well. For I still don't understand why my nuzlocke tracker was convinced that Maxi wasn't there on the volcano, but the boss there was Admin Tabita. I don't know, whatever. Maxi was easy, and then I went to the gym. The gym was really easy until I got to the last Pokemon of the gym leader, Her Torqual. The problem with Torqual is that overheat in the sun really packs a punch, and a crit overheat could pretty much KO any of my Pokemon. I noticed that my Sorrock was in a dangerous position, but I judged that switching in Marstomp was too risky because I was risking a crit, and I decided that maybe Solrock could hold on. It couldn't. it was KO'd by the overheat. And then, because the Torqual had a white herb that reset the special attack drop, I had to still play around the overheat again with my Marstomp. So I tried switching out to be the overheat and make it land on Geodude, but I failed. Geodude went down to a normal body slam, and then I just won without any risk because the Torqual just decided not to use the overheat again. But it was kind of a mess. It is a good tactic. It makes the gym quite hard. It can't wipe you, but it is still difficult to beat the gym without losing even a single Pokemon. You could notice now that of the 5 Pokemon that I lost until now, 4 don't touch the ground, 3 are flying types, and 1 is levitate. Keep this in mind. Afterwards, I decided to train a Spoink.
What?
Okay, that happened. I was incredibly confused. I was convinced that Meditite didn't have any good attacking moves at low levels, and this wasn't even a gym, so it shouldn't have a TM. I suppose I remember the moveset wrong? No, I don't. I went to check. High jump kick is a level 32 learn move, and it's not an ATM. And it's not a move that you can relearn with an air scale. It's not even an event move, or like it is an event move, but above level 33 anyway. There is no way for that meditate to have that move. It should be an egg move at most. Like now the enemy trainers have egg moves. No, they don't. It's just this single trainer. Damn. Anyway, that was the last trainer of the Winsrate family, which is, that family near the lake that you have to beat 4 trainers in a row. Little cute thing that you have to do to get the Macho Brace. Anyway, I lost my Spoink. Let's see what I can get now. I decided to strategize for the next gym. And the next gym has Slacking, which you can cheese with Protect, but you don't have the TM yet. And if you can't cheese it, Slacking is really, really strong. That Facade is dangerous. I was watching just the other day a video from Smith Plays Pokemon, where he said that the gym is hard because the game doesn't hand you a tool to straight up cheese the Slacking, but he's wrong. You do have a tool to cheese it that you're guaranteed to get. Anorif. So I got the fossil because Anorif exactly at level 31, which is the level cap for the gym, learns Protect naturally. So the gym should be solved. I also decided to train Baltoy. Oh, damn. Another self-destruct. First of all, notice that this is the 5th Pokemon that doesn't touch the ground that goes away in this run. At this point, I was finding it fun. I would regret it later. And also, another Psychic type. I don't know what's wrong with me and Psychic types, but I lost my Hypno in yellow, my Hypno again in silver, and then Spoink and Baltoy in this run. Psychic types are just not my thing, I guess. And self-destruct is seriously a problem because what was I supposed to do? I couldn't even switch because no other Pokemon on my team could take crit self-destruct. So whoever I switched in was at risk anyway. But am I supposed to keep Marston first every single time I meet an Iker? I don't know. That's the only solution I have. I guess I will actually do it. I wasn't predicting that before the battle. Anyway, I cleared the second Three Cows level, and I have to say that once again it was just exploring all the level, but there wasn't really any puzzle or any trick. Then I cleared the third level of the Three Cows, and this one was actually pretty fun. The puzzle where you had to open and close some doors with buttons was nice in my opinion, and the reward was finally relevant for the run, an item that strengthens rock type moves. Then I finished training for the gym, and the training was horrible. It lasted multiple hours because I had to train Anonif, which is a Pokemon that requires a lot of experience in the low levels. And I decided to train it in the desert with Trapinches because the nature was modest, which already gives him less attack, and Slacking has a ton of life, and the amount of PP from Protect is limited, so I needed all the attack I could get, and Trapinch gives attack EVs. The problem is that you can't run away from battles with Trapinches, and you can't switch. So especially for the first few battles, it took very, very long because every time I took a little bit of damage, I had to run to heal to ensure that I didn't randomly meet a Trapinch that killed my Anorith. The 5th gym is a little unique. In the other gym, usually the trainers before the gym leader are extremely easy, and the only real challenge is the gym leader. Here, some of the rooms actually have decent trainers. In particular, the notable rooms, in my opinion, are the defense room, where there is a Wigglytuff, and yes, a Wigglytuff is not that strong of a Pokemon, but it is level 30, so your Pokemon are not fully evolved sometimes, and the Wigglytuff has a Double Edge, which is a really high power move for this point in the game, that can actually do some serious damage to your team if you are unprepared. The fact that it tends to use Defense Curve first, though, actually makes it easier. The other dangerous Pokemon is Zangoose. Zangoose has pretty high stats for this point in the game, and it sets up with Sword Dance. This makes him a real threat. If you can't beat it fast enough, you could end up getting swept. But the defenses are not that high, so if you bring an attacker that is powerful and fast enough, it should not be too hard. The gym leader has a moderate difficulty. For the first two Pokemon, I simply beat them using my Swalot. Then Velinoon came in, and that Velinoon has Belly Drum, so you have to pay special attention. I decided to use Yawn to get an easy switch, and Velinoon didn't use Belly Drum, which made everything much easier. For the last Pokemon, the Slacking, I stacked a Numel to get a free switch in, and then I simply chiseled it with Protect with Anorith. And I had, I would say, average luck with the attack increases from Metal Claw. I actually got them about every 10 attacks, so yeah, average. So I would say the strat was overall safe. The only unsafe point was when using Yone against Velinoon, because first I misjudged the power of its attack, so if it had landed a crit, my Swalot would have gone down. And second, if it actually chose to use Belly Drum, I would have had to sack one more Pokemon to absorb the Belly Drummed attack before switching in something to finish it off while it's left. And by the way, in the description, I will link clips of specific moments in the run or specific points in the stream where you can watch the full battles that right now I'm describing really fast. So if you're interested in watching them full length, just go to the description and you can find the links. After the gym battle, I finally obtained the citrus berries, which in this generation restore 30 HPs, which are pretty good. Then I moved on to Route 123 and decided to make a berry farm because I needed both more citrus berries and more friendship berries. The friendship berries are useful because they actually lower the EVs of your Pokemon, so you can use them to take away EVs from useless stats and put more EVs in useful stats. While going to the sixth gym, I actually caught Aleinun, which is an extremely useful Pokemon, not because I will use it to battle, but because it is pick up, which gives you more items, more vitamins. It pretty much prints you money, which is pretty useful because you can convert it into vitamins, and vitamins are extra stats for your Pokemon. On the route to the gym, I actually had to avoid trainers whenever possible because in this section you could actually overlevel because the level limit is 33. And then I actually lost my Electrike to a wild Absol while I was trying to catch it. I managed to catch it, but Absol is kind of useless. Not that Electric is especially good, so whatever. For this gym fight, the real treat is the Altaria, because with Dragon Dance it has the potential to sweep your whole team once it sets up. My counter is Marsh Stomp with Rock Tomb, but I have to admit that it is not a rock solid counter because it can miss, and I hate low accuracy moves. I also bring Magnemite and Absol, two Pokemon that I don't intend to train, but they can do some stuff in this fight, and they will be useful. I start with Swalot and beat the Swablu, but then Altaria immediately comes in, which is something that I didn't expect, and for a moment I think this is actually lucky, because I can just yawn it, go to Marstomp, and then it should be easy to beat it. But the AI does something that I didn't expect and switches out once it is asleep. Tropius comes in, I go back to Swalot, I beat the Tropius, and then Altaria comes back in. Now, at this point it should be easy since it is already asleep and I can just directly go to Marshtomp. But then I noticed something. It's not asleep. Altaria's ability cures it of any status alteration when it switches out, which means Yawn doesn't work great. I yawn again, bring in Marstomp, and now I'm trying to check if there is a special AI that actually switches out Altaria every time it has a status condition, or if it was just a lucky switch out because a grass type against a water ground type is an obvious move even for the AI. Altaria doesn't switch out, and Marsh Tomb lands a Rock Tomb, but it does way less than what I expected. And then the second turn, Altaria switches out. I have no idea what the AI is doing, but I guess statusing the Altaria doesn't really work that well. Pelipper comes in, and the luck stat of that Pelican is out of this world. It lands two consecutive supersonics, it forces Marston to switch out, and then it even beats Absol with Lucky Confusion self-hits. After the Pelipper goes down, Skarmory comes in. Skarmory is actually terrifying for my team, which is why I brought the Magnemite. The Magnemite wouldn't have any problem to beat the Skarmory, but because of Send Attack, it becomes a really drawn-out fight. The problem is that after I beat the Skarmory, the Altaria will come in, and my Magnemite can't really deal with the Altaria, and I'm not in a position where I can give it a free turn to Dragon Dance. The plan I come up with is that I have to land a Thunder Wave on the Altaria on the first turn. So, if the Altaria attacks the Magnemite goes down and it is perfectly fine. If the Altaria sets up a Dragon Dance, Magnemite paralyzes it with Thunder Wave, and then it's not a problem because my whole team will outspeed it. And there are no more Pokemon it can switch to. Send attack means that my Thunder Wave could miss, so I keep switching around trying to land an attack with Magnemite to kill the Skarmory before its accuracy gets lowered. It was a pretty funny situation, but it took a while. Finally, Veltaria comes in and beats the Magnemite with Dragon Breath? I don't know, I kind of expected Earthquake, but it doesn't matter. The rest of my team together manages to beat Veltaria without losing any more Pokemon. And I have to say that I really love Anonymous ability that blocks crits, because with that you can stay in even in situations where you are risking a crit multiple times in a row. It's really, really good for Nuzlocks. Before the 7th gym, there is a huge section of the map to explore, and there are many story events: Mount Fire, Magmite Out, and Aquaid Out. And you also have to level up multiple times because the level cap goes from 33 to 42. But there are not actually many notable events. The only things that happen is that I catch a Vulpix and add it to my team because I need something to handle steel types. I'm just too weak against stuff like Skarmory or Aron. And then there are a few trainers, both in Vampire and in the 7th gym, that use Wobbuffets. Wobbuffets are extremely dangerous for Nuzlocke because they stop you from switching, and if you don't have a status move, you're forced to attack and risk just getting KO'd. Luckily, I was training the Ninetales, and the Ninetales had the Will-O-Wisp, so the Wobbuffets were just not a treaty in this case. Then I beat the Fall Arbor Battle Tent, which gave me an Hyper Potion as a reward. An Hyper Potion, really, that's a terrible reward. I really wish they gave better rewards for this optional content. Then got the experience share, which I could have gotten a lot earlier, but I didn't remember how to get it. And then I decided to train a Puchena because there was some extra experience. Actually, there was extra experience, but not enough for a whole new Pokemon. So in the end, I had to train a bit with random trainers to reach level 42. And then I went to the gym. This gym is pretty hard. In particular, at the start, there is this Claydol that just spams Earthquake. Since his companion is Saxatu, it only hits your Pokemon. The idea is that you should probably use a flying type Pokemon to counter it, but you know, my box is full of dead flying type Pokemon and levitate Pokemon. So I didn't really have a counter ready for that, but I decided to lead with Magtiena, and since Intimidate reduces the power of Earthquake, that actually made the battle doable. The problem is that I misclicked. I used Roar instead of Bite, and roared out the Claydol, which put me in trouble. First of all, the Solrock decided to use Solar Beam. I stayed in with Swampert because there wasn't the sun up, so I thought I would have time to switch later. But Vexatu put up the sun for the Solrock, and I lost my Swampert. Then I got hit by an unlucky Hypnosis on my 90s. And then when Claydol later came in again, I didn't have anything that could resist the Earthquake when Claydol wasn't intimidated anymore, and I just ended up wiping. This is the first time I wipe while nuzlocking, And I was honestly upset because I felt that was because of the misclick. So I had to restart, but before restarting, I just wanted to test if this was because of a misclick or if my preparations were inadequate. So I went in again and tried to see what happens. This time, I beat the gym without losing a single Pokemon. So admittedly, I was lucky. From my estimate, I think with my preparations, an average result is beating the gym while losing only one Pokemon. But if a single misclick can completely wreck my strat and cause me to wipe, I think that means that my team wasn't really ready for this gym. If you want to see the full battle where I wiped, or if you want to see the rematch where I beat the gym without losing a single Pokemon, as I said, everything is linked in the description. So as I said, I had to restart. And this time, since it was all content that I had already done, I decided to play at double speed. So for this part of the video, you may see that the footage you see while I talk is double speed. I didn't speed it up for the video. It's just that the original footage is double speed. I pick Mudkip again because why not? Then add a Wingull and a Tailo to my team. And then remember not to lose an encounter in Rastor's Tunnel. You have to catch the Whismur before you go to Route 116. Then Mudkip solos the gym, which is pretty much the same as last time. But a stupid problem comes up. My Mudkip levels up to level 17 during the battle, so it evolves in Marshtomp at level 17 and doesn't learn Mudshot, which means it doesn't have a good physical stab move. I directly go to the second gym, and this time Tailo just destroys the gym because this Tailo has a bit more attack than the Tailo from the first attempt. It's so fast that I can put the wool fight here, it is like 40 seconds. After visiting fight, I have to sack an Inkada in a random double battle, and this is the first death of the run. I'm forced to sack because I don't have a switch in for electric type attacks on my team, and I have to say that this will be a recurring problem in this run. Marshtomp goes against Watson, and expected it to be a really easy battle like last time, because yeah, I don't have Mudshot, but Mudslap should still be enough to easily beat the gym leader. But I forgot something. Mudslap has enough damage to beat the gym leader, but it doesn't have enough PP. I run out of PP in the middle of the battle, and the situation becomes critical. I honestly deserve to wipe here because I was underprepared. I relied too much on Mudslap, and I forgot a really simple fact that PP exists. But I got lucky. My Swallow somehow won because Manectric just decided to use Quick Attack instead of Shockwave and missed. Then I move on towards the fourth gym, and on the road I get a Zubat from Metrofols and add it to my team. Then I get the experience share early this time, and then I meet Spoink, and I KO it with a crit. I'm just terribly unlucky when it comes to getting a Psychic type Pokemon on my team, I guess. The final fight is, in my opinion, pretty cool. I have Pelipper for this fight. Pelipper easily one-shots the first three Pokemon, and then we get to the real problem. Torqual. I remember from last time that the overheat is a problem because it's hard even for Pokemon that resist fire to survive a sun-boosted overheat, but Pelipper has a secret weapon, Water Sport. I think this is a move that has pretty much never been used, neither in competitive, in-game, or even in Nuzlocke. Like, it's a completely useless move, but in this situation, it's actually good because you can actually reduce the damage from the overheat as if you resisted it with both of your types, and that means you can survive even a crit. Torqual is forced to chip down Pelipper with Body Slam, and in the meantime, I force Flannery to use her Hyper Potions, and then with a series of switches, I just finish it with Marshtomp. In the process, I was forced to sack a Minun, and I have to say this fight is still a pretty hard one, but overall it went much, much better than last time. I didn't lose any important Pokemon, and I just didn't lose an important Pokemon that I was training until now in this whole second run. I went to the fifth gym, and before even reaching the gym leader, I had once again trouble with the Wigglytuff. I don't know what kind of problems I have with that Pokemon, but I just can't beat it cleanly, I guess. And then the gym leader was instead extremely safe. Got Swallow just swept the first three Pokemon, Then I sucked a Pokemon to switch in safely into the Slacking, and I just thought it would be funny to suck an Anorith. And then Pelipper cheesed the Slacking exactly like Anorith did it last time, with Protect. Pelipper is the other Pokemon that naturally learns Protect before level 31, and it actually does more damage than Anorith, so just a really easy win. Then I got Surf, and this time I knew that there was an Ice Beam TM into the abandoned ship, so I went to get it, and Ice Beam Pelipper just destroyed the Altaria that we know not with me. Then Crobat dealt with Petropius, and for the other Pokemon I used a random Manectric that I picked up on the road and that I didn't even train. Now there is the extremely long stretch until the 7th gym, but it's all stuff that you already covered. The only important things are that I catch a Vulpix again, because I want a fire type, just like last time, and Vulpix is the guaranteed one. And then I train my Pelipper against a ton of Wingulls, because I want to increase its speed so that it can outspeed the Claydol. Let's go directly to the gym battle. This is my revenge against Tate and Liza. Everything revolves around the first turn. Swallow one-shots Vexato with a Guts Facade, which means that the sun can't be set, so the Surf from Pelipper will hit both the Switch In and the Claydol with full power. Then, as long as the Claydol can't one-shot the Pelipper with a crit, it's all fine. It doesn't happen, so I'm pretty confident in the rest of the battle. I just face a really uncertain second turn because it turns out that the Surf from Pelipper actually did exactly half to both Claydol and Lunaton, and that means that I have no idea if the next Surf will kill any Pokemon, and the uncertainty is not something that you want in a Nuzlocke. Anyway, the second turn actually doesn't give me any trouble, and then the rest of the battle goes smoothly. I decided to sack a Sharpedo that I got a little bit ago, because it made the fight even safer, and it was really a Pokemon that I didn't need. Done with our revenge, it's time to explore the rest of the game. We catch a Snorunt in the Shell Cave while getting the Shell Bell. Then we move on with the story by beating Team Magma, and I think this battle together with Steven may be the first battle with an AI trainer in the whole game. Well, maybe there was one in Ruby and Sapphire, but if there was, it should be the same one. Then we move on to Team Aqua, and we see what I think is the first cutscene animation, how should I call it? Cutscene. The first cutscene of the game, the one where Kyogre and Groudon fight. Whoa, incredible technology. We now have cutscene. We go to the Sky Pillar to wake up Rayquaza because I guess a world-ending cataclysm is not enough if you have a deep sleep. In the pillar, we can finally catch damn explosion. Anyway, with the situation solved, we can now focus on the last gym. The trainers before the gym leader were quite interesting because I intentionally failed the puzzle to challenge them, but because of how they were placed, I unintentionally sometimes could put myself into a gauntlet where I had to challenge multiple trainers in a row before going back to the Pokemon Center. It wasn't a big problem, but it was interesting. Then I decided to train my Swallow against the Sharpets in Mount Pyre to boost its attack as much as possible, and then I went to the gym leader. The strategy against the gym leader was a result of quite some work because I trained my Swallow's attack, I gave it the Seal Scarf, I made sure it was poisoned to have Guts boosted facade, but the result was quite simple. Swallow just one-shot every single Pokemon of the gym leader without any problem. I would say that this was the easiest gym from an execution point of view, and even planning for it wasn't that hard once I realized that I could increase my Swallow's attack that much. But the gym itself is actually really, really hard because if my Swallow was even just a bit weaker and it couldn't one-shot the Kingdra, that Kingdra is impossible to beat reliably, honestly. It has rest and it can boost its evasion with a double team. So everything becomes a game of chance, and you could just get unlucky and lose because nothing will hit it anymore after a single double team. Sure, that's unlikely, but it can happen. And the rest makes it impossible to cheese it with status or with any defensive strategy. A really well-designed gym. I just so happened to have a counter. After the gym, it's time to explore the huge water section of the game. There is the underwater part, where, by the way, the music is incredible. There are the parts above waterfalls that I can only reach now. And then there is the current puzzle near Pacific Log Town that is pretty nice, honestly. I have to say that there is indeed a bit too much water, but it was a nice section. It was also very easy because I was kind of overleveled. My Pokemon were around level 45, and I was beating trainers at level 35 on average. So I was prepared to have a really easy section until I got to Victory Road, until I met with Nosepass. I have no idea how this happened, but I lost my Crobat against a Nosepass 10 levels lower. Not only did it paralyze me, but then it also stopped me from switching out with block and slowly took down my Crobat. It even BM'd me because it could have killed me one turn faster, but it didn't and chose to go for Sandstorm once more, because why not? I won't put the full fight here because it is actually pretty long, but I was incredibly salty after this happened. I'm still salty now. How? How does this happen? Anyway, I brought my saltiness to Victory Road, where I was ambushed by Wally, because for some reason I was completely convinced that Wally was at the end of the cave, but he was at the start. I wasn't prepared for the fight, but it was pretty easy anyway, so okay. And in Victory Road, there is also Vito from the Winsrate family. It is a nice detail from the game developers, but he is actually just a random cool trainer. He doesn't have any special team or anything. With all of this done, I finally reached the Indigo Plateau, and the only thing that's left now is the league, the Elite Four. But I have to add a new member to my team because my Crobat is dead. I searched through my box, and I didn't really have anything that really convinced me. But then I noticed this modest Makuita that I just caught in Victory Road. Modest is a terrible nature for a Makuita, but it was pretty fast, and that's relevant because I came up with a strat that involved this Makuita with maxed out speed EVs and maxed out attack EVs, pretty much maxed out. But I had to max out the EVs, and that took way too long. I started grinding, and I noticed that the fastest way to get these EVs was actually to beat the Puchenas and the Wingulls in the first area of the game. So there was this level 40 plus Pokemon beating level 2 Pokemon because it was just the most efficient way. And it took a really long time. The stream where I trained my Ariyama and then I beat the Elite Four is 9 hours long. And the Elite Four was extremely quick, so it's all me training Ariyama and then leveling up a bit the other Pokemon. If you give me a tool like the EVs that I can manipulate and use to do something, I will do it, even if it takes way too long. Damn it, Emerald, you gave me too many options. My preparations this time were quite different than in Silver, mainly because I used the calculator quite a bit. Partially because the 4 here are slightly harder, partially because there are some treats that you really want to one-shot, like Pokemon with Explosion, partially because my team wasn't really that good, and in part because the strats I wanted to use were really cool but required some one-shots and I had to be sure that I would one-shot. I also used the calc to check the speed of opposing Pokemon to make sure I would outspeed, and I ended up training my Glalie speed EVs a little bit because it didn't outspeed the Flygon otherwise. Then I walked around in the ash for a bit to craft the flute, which is useless, but it's a fun activity. I want to collect stuff, okay? But I actually got bored after only getting one flute. Way too many steps needed for one of those musical instruments. Then I did all the stages of the trick house that I could. There was the boulder stage where you had to push boulders. That wasn't really a puzzle, honestly. Then there was the quits. I honestly like the quit stuff that is in Pokemon, like also Blaine's Gym, but I always find it annoying that I want to answer correctly, but if I answer correctly, I won't see the fight that was prepared in case I made a mistake. Then the next stage had the Winona style puzzle. I don't know how to call that revolving stuff. It was okay. And the reward was the magnet, and an held item is actually a pretty good reward for once. Then there was the puzzle like the one in the seventh gym, and I really liked that one. I also really liked it in the gym. That's probably my favorite puzzle in all of Emerald. Then I finished leveling up my Pokemon. I tried doing it using the match call, which is a much better system than what we had in Silver. But it wasn't enough, so I had to finish up with some wild Pokemon. Then I used some vitamins and berries for a final EV's checkup. I talked a couple of moves, fixed up the movesets. I poisoned my Swallow, and I went in. This time, my team was even at the level cap, which is 55, like the ace of the fourth Elite Four. The first battle is a complete Ariyama show. I got the white herb. I had to check on Bulbapedia how to get it because I didn't remember. But anyway, I got it. I gave it to Ariyama. It triggers when Mike Tiena intimidates my Ariyama. And at that point, I just have to click Brick Break 5 times, and every Pokemon on the Elite Four team is one shot. The next fight is actually a team effort. Swampert weakens the Dusclops with Toxic, then Ninetales steps in and sets up the Sun before beating it with Flamethrower. The second Dusclops goes down after two Flamethrowers. I had to risk a crit on Ninetales, but even if Ninetales went down, it didn't matter. It didn't have anything else to do in this whole Elite Four run. Then a Banette comes in, and I just counter it with Swampert, which is a really good physical wall. Banette uses Grudge that just brings your PP to 0 when you kill it with a move next turn. I was prepared for it. I had a Leppa Berry on my Swampert, but there is a fun interaction where Phoebe uses an Hyper Potion to heal the Banette, and that counts as using another move after the Grudge, so the Grudge doesn't activate when I Earthquake down the Banette. Then Sableye comes in, survives my Earthquake, and sets up a double team. Just for the sake of caution, I switch in my Swallow and finish it with Aerial Ace. I don't want that small risk of missing everything afterwards. That's why I talked Aerial Ace to my Swallow. The last Pokemon is a Banette, and Swampert just makes short work of it with Earthquake. The third fight is pretty much a repeat of the first one. I equip my Ariyama with a Cherry Berry to prevent paralysis and sets up a Bulk Up on the first turn. Bestialio could use Body Slam, but I discovered later that it is probably hard-coded to always use Hail on the first turn. But anyway, I had the Berry for the paralysis. It didn't matter if it used Body Slam. After the attack boost, my Ariyama can just outspeed and one-shot everything with Brick Break once again. Ariyama is putting in all the work, honestly. It's time for Drake, and I obviously start with Glalie. With Ice Beam, it can one-shot most of its Pokemon, and it does. It outspeeds and one-shots Shelgon, Flygon, Salamence, and Altaria. But the problem is actually the last Pokemon, the Kingdra. It's the second time I meet a Kingdra, and unlike with Juans, I don't have a Pokemon already in ready to one-shot it. But this Kingdra is not as dangerous as Juans, because it doesn't have Double Team and Rest. It is a more offensive Kingdra with Dragon Dance, and it does have an annoying smoke screen that it does use, but I just switch out the Glalie that has its precision lowered, so that I can send in my Swallow, and Swallow is so fast that it outspeeds the Kingdra even after it Dragon Danced one, and it ends the fight. Only the champion left. My strategy for the champion is pretty cool. My Riyama actually has two different setup moves. Bulk Up, which I used for Glacia, and then Belly Drum, that is ready for the champion. The idea is to weaken the Wailord with a Brick Break, and then set up a Belly Drum while it heals. If I weaken it enough, the Water Spout won't do much damage. I actually panicked just before the fight because I calculated it wrong. I had +1 attack on Ariyama when I was running the calc because it was left from the calculations for the Glacier fight. But it turns out that the line is really safe even without that +1. So I end up setting the belly drum and start sweeping. Four of the champion's Pokemon go down easily. Then it's Gyarados' turn. Gyarados was a problem because it had a little chance to survive after the Intimidate, but my Ariyama leveled up just before fighting the Gyarados, and with that level up, it got the KO with certainty. The funny thing is that I was scared for the Gyarados, so just in case Mariyama lost against the Gyarados somehow, I had Magnet Pelipper in the back because Shockwave Pelipper was the only thing with an electric move that I had, and I had to power it up somehow. So yeah, Pelipper best electric Pokemon. Milotic also easily goes down to Ariyama, and I think this was a really clean champion fight. Really cool, only one Pokemon, set up and sweep, and this was also a Deathless Elite 4. I'm really satisfied. But there is still something to do. The post-game. Unlike in Silver, where the only event in the post-game was red, there are at least three things to do in Emerald post-game. Rematching the gym leaders, the Battle Frontier, and beating Steven, which is the equivalent of red. First of all, I wanted to try rematching the gym leaders, but I had no rematches available in my match call, so I postponed that. I went to beat the Verdantur's tent, the horrible one where you can't control what your Pokemon do, because I had postponed it until now and I just wanted to complete all the battle tents. The reward was a nest ball. Okay, fine. Then I went to complete the last challenge of Trick House. It was a nice floor puzzle, even though it is not ice. It's a really classic puzzle. They are always good if they are well done. Nothing to complain about. Then there was the ship for the Battle Frontier. I really don't know what to say because why are you throwing at me level 45 Pokemon when I've already beaten the Elite Four? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Wrong level, honestly. But okay, it's just a loss of time before we get to the Battle Frontier. The Battle Frontier is one of the most hyped up part of Emerald. I think a lot of people have fond memories of it. I actually spent more time on Diamond in this kind of stuff, but I did spend a lot of time fighting there, and it was indeed fun. But when I got to this point in this game, I have to say it was kind of boring. I don't know, we are in 2025. If I really want to battle hard against other people, I can hop on Showdown and just play against people instead of having to play against the game. And it was also really annoying that it was slow. This is really the part where I have to say, oh, if I play it in double speed, it is so much better. Single speed for stuff like the Battle Tower, I think it's called, where you bring your team and challenge multiple trainers in a row, it's incredibly boring. It's just frustrating. The Battle Factory, where they give you Pokemon, is more interesting. And I have to say that my favorite one was probably the Battle Pyramid. I didn't ever remember this mod existed. It's the one you see on the screen. You have to explore the floor. You have to light up the darkness by beating trainers and wild Pokemon. You can find items. It's kind of a roguelike. It's interesting because it is different from anything else in a Pokemon game, and it's also different from what you do on Showdown, but it's slow once again. You can't really run because you have to explore carefully, but there are wild Pokemon encounters, so every 3 steps you encounter a wild Pokemon, which is an incredibly annoying experience. So it's fun, but it has also some negative sides, honestly. I played it for a while, then I got bored and decided to move on. I have to say that the Battle Frontier was incredibly good for the year in which this game came out because it was a ton of value packed in a single game. You could play it for hours and hours and hours. In the internet age, the value of something like that, I think, really goes down. You can play against other people online, and that's just more fun. The next thing to do was finally challenging the gym leaders. I finally got a challenge from Flannery. I went to a fight. It was a double fight, which is incredibly good, and level 36 Pokemon. Why is this in the post game? Why aren't you throwing me this re-challenge when I was like before the seventh gym, when it was level appropriate? After seeing the level gap, I just lost the drive to go through a lot of battles against under-level gym leaders before finally getting to the good teams, and I just moved on. Last thing in the game, Steven. Now, I spent some time on the calc because I refused to train until the level of his Pokemon, so I just used the calc to see more or less where I could stop. The choice was spend time on the calc or spend time actually farming in the game, and farming is boring as hell. So I went to the fight, and okay, you already know if you watched my silver video, a single fight against an opponent at the end of the game with six Pokemon, even with Nuzlocke rules, it's very, very unlikely to lose. It's very, very unlikely to wipe because you can suck Pokemon whenever you want to regain tempo. So it's not surprising at all that I won, but I managed to win without losing a single Pokemon. The strat was okay. I just removed a couple of Pokemon that gave me trouble with Ninetales, and then everything else left on his team died in a single hit to Bellydra Mariyama. Isayama just carried me for that game. Great Pokemon. Belly Drum is a broken move. If they give you a setup move in a vanilla game, you just run with it. I had a brain fart in the middle of a fight because I completely forgot that Brick Break removes the screens. So I wasn't sure what to do and stopped for a bit, but a clean fight apart from that. I leave the fight going on in the background and I will give my final considerations on the game. It's a good game. It's much better than Silver. I actually found it slightly easier. I think on average it is harder because the opponents are more well fought and everything, but it has slightly less variance. In Silver, some incredibly stupid bullshit can happen, like the double crit dynamic punch that happened to me, or the hypnosis Dream Meter Gengar that just stuns you. There isn't anything quite like this in Emerald, or if there is, you have more tools so you can still find a safe line where you don't risk anything. This requires more skill. If you go kind of blindly, randomly in the game, you are not sure what you're doing, Silver is easier because you can just avoid the bad luck. The bad luck is an extreme case. If you avoid that bad luck, Silver is not hard, honestly. Emerald requires you to do more stuff. There is more stuff to tinker with. There is the EVs, while in Silver you just boost all of your stats. I also really appreciated that the way that Emerald implements difficulty is not that the opposing trainers are incredibly strong, but the Pokemon that you are given, the encounters, are actually not that good. There aren't that many really strong Pokemon in Emerald apart from your starter and the legendaries. And many of them require a trade. So it's really balanced like that. Also, your Pokemon have access to a wide variety of moves, in theory, but many of these moves are in the Battle Frontier, so they are locked after the Elite Four, so they are not relevant at all for a Nuzlocke usually. I also appreciated the match call that made me get experience faster. I had to train less against wild Pokemon. Still not at the level of the fourth generation where you could just rematch trainers whenever you wanted, but a really big improvement over the second generation, honestly. There was a lot of wasted potential. The trick house was great. You may have noticed in the video, but I loved the puzzles, but it didn't give any meaningful reward. You could just completely skip it, which isn't good. Why put content in the game when it's completely optional and doesn't even give anything for those that choose to do the optional stuff? Give a reward, please. The same problem is with a secret base. You can decorate a lot, do a lot of stuff, but that gives you absolutely nothing. Same with contests. Contests are pretty fun, honestly. I did a couple of them, but you have no incentive to actually finish the contest, even of a single category. The Poffins or Pokeblocks or whatever they're called are a pretty confused system. You have to check online, and then to make perfect ones, you actually need to play with friends. It's just a bit of a mess, a lot of work, and again, no reward at all. And the last wasted potential are the rematches against the gym leaders, because they should be sprinkled along with the story a bit earlier, when you are at the appropriate level. And here and there are some problems with the level curve. I know I listed a lot of problems, but this is still a good game, way, way better than the second generation ones. It's a fun game. it's fun to nuzlocke, and I had fun. Now it's time to try Platinum, I guess. Thank you for watching this. It became an hour long because I suck at being concise and you need a TLDL of a video. I guess it is. Ooh, I beat Emerald. It was kind of fun. Next game, please.